Gateway Gamers podcast.
I can't wait to talk about our top 10 classic
boy.
games because as I was making it, like, oh man, I'm really dating myself here. So I'm very curious on what games you have.
Oh
So
boy.
classic, if you define like the definition of classic, like you just kind of think of
Mhm.
something that's like evergreen or
Mhm.
something that will stand the test of time. For me, classic is like nostalgia a bit. Like I definitely making my list, I was like, well, I could do the quote unquote classics that are out, like the Hasbro games that are out forever. And I definitely have some of those on my list. But hopefully, like you, a lot of my classics are games that I grew up with. Like
Yes.
I was a gamer as a kid. I kind of fell off for a long time and then discovered this new world of gaming. But when I was young in the 90s, we had there was a giant boom of these really cool games that were in this coffin box style gaming. So those are the games I kind of grew up with. So I'm very curious and very interested how our top tens are going to align. So
Yeah.
so we'll just do this like round robin.
Sure.
I'll start with my 10, you start with your 10, then we'll go down the list until our number
Mm.
ones, which
Okay.
there's no way they're going to match, but I'm very curious.
I,
Um,
I'm just gonna state one thing. My
okay.
top 10 list goes chronologically. Um,
Okay.
a lot of these games, and I don't have a game that is after 1984, just
Oh
to let you
boy.
know.
Okay.
Yeah. So these games all mean something to me. And in order, it's funny because I made my list and then I looked at it. I'm like, this is chronological, like literally chronological, because the memories I have of these games
hmm
tie into where I rate them. But yeah, that's my disclaimer.
Yeah, that I'm kind of the same. A lot of these games on my
Cool.
list are
Yeah.
probably crap, but I have such fond memories of playing them.
Yeah.
So I'll start us off. My number 10
Sure.
is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Pizza Power game from 1987.
Oh,
Are
good
you
one.
aware of this game?
I am not, but I
Okay.
feel like I should look that up on BGG.
You've probably seen this game. The cover is pretty iconic. It's just like the really early Ninja Turtles artwork.
Mm.
Um, so
Oh,
I didn't have this game, but someone across the street had it, so they bring it over all the time. Being a child of the late 80s, early 90s, Ninja Turtles were life. Like it was
mm.
just Ninja Turtles were awesome. Like they still are, but 80s and 90s, like they were the king. The game is basically a roll and move. You're running around this giant, god awful. I'm sure if you looked at the map, you would probably die because the graphic design is terrible. And
I'm
you're
looking
running
at it right
around.
now.
Yeah. You're running
Yeah.
around and you're collecting four different heroes, and then you're fighting. You need to fight three villains to collect, and then you go ahead to Technodrome in the middle. So the thing that makes this game stand out is the fighting system. It's this teeter totter blue thing. So what you do is you put the dice on the one end, and if you draw like a shredder card, it's a three. You have to hit the one end of the teeter totter to flip the dice into the spot that's a three.
Whoa.
So this is hard for an adult. So this is a kid's game that would go forever because you're just like flipping this, trying to get this teeter totter in. And it was like super hard to do. And then when you beat your enemies and you collect all your heroes and you got to the middle and you're fighting the Technodrome, you had to successfully flip into the one and then flip into the two and then flip into three to win. And I
Oh,
think you could
wow.
only mess up like once.
Oh, man.
So again,
Wow. That's
a
brutal.
terribly designed game. But the box art, it's one of those games that I'm still looking for when I go thrift stores. It's one of those games that when I saw the cover again, I was just like flooded. I was like, oh man, like what a good game this was. And then
Mm.
like I really like looked at directions again. I'm like, man, this was not a good game. But it's one of those classic games that if I ever found it at a thrift store, I would like be really excited to kind of find.
Mm.
So that's my number 10.
My number 10 is going to be a game I just mentioned, Supremacy.
Okay.
Uh, Came out in 84. My buddies and I, after school every day, would get together and play this. And I have so many fond memories. Like I said, it's kind of like Risk with nukes.
Mm-hmm.
You're buying corporations on the board that produce various resources. Um, there's always a threat of nuclear detente because somebody's going to start building up nukes, and the game ends when somebody gets to a certain um, so, it's been so long. I don't even know what the victory condition is. I only know what the losing condition is. 12 nukes on the board. And one of my greatest memories of this game is we goaded one of my friends into nuking Tibet. We goaded him, and he wasn't going to. If he had nuked any place else, he would have wiped out one of my buddies and would have won the game. But we goaded him into nuking Tibet, which actually has no corporations or resources in it. So
So
one
you
of our
just peer pressure this poor guy.
peer pressure, yeah, into nuking Tibet. So one of our inside jokes was a nuke in Tibet. When anybody made like basically like an effort that was totally futile, we'd say, "Oh, you just put a nuke in Tibet." Um, and I had this. This is a fun story too. Was a local gaming convention that we did, and I ran it. I said, "Oh, I'm going to run this game." So my buddies all showed up, and we had this other guy, this random guy that came over to the table, and he sits down and he's like, "Yeah, I'll play." And we're like, "Great." So we're like, "Okay," we start playing, and I'm running the game, and he's like, "No, you're oh." It turns out we've been playing the game wrong for like 4 years.
Oh no.
You're only there's like 12 things you can do on your turn, but you can only pick three. We didn't do that. We started at the top of the turn track and everybody just went down it. So he's like, "You're playing wrong." And we're like, "Well, no, that's the way you play it." And he goes, "No, you're only supposed to pick three things a turn when you have your turn." He said, "Well, are you sure you want to play that way?" We're like, "Yeah." Well, he wiped the board with everybody. He was a developer
Oh, that's
of the
exciting
game.
and
It
terrifying at the same
was.
time.
It was. He goes, "Oh yeah, I'm the one who made it." So he basically fell into his trap because he knew exactly what to do, and the fact that he had unlimited power every
Yeah.
turn. But yeah, that's my fun
Well,
supremacy story.
that's exciting because then you got to
Yeah,
work on the updated version, being that's one of like your
exactly.
favorite games.
Yep.
And
Good
I'm looking,
times.
you kept the aesthetic for sure. Like it's definitely because I
hmm
looked at the 80s one and it's bright, and then you kept that
hmm
same kind of
Yeah.
aesthetic, which is exciting.
Yeah, when I worked with Command Post Games on it, I told him my vision, and he was kind of a little put off by it at first. But then I won him around by, just saying like, "Hey, if you look at the original, which was much beloved by him, he's like, you're right. I think your look gives it enough of a nod, but makes it unique and
Yeah,
in its own way." Yeah,
updates a bit. And then you just say, like, hey, I played with a developer. This is
yeah. I told him that story, and he laughed his ass off. I'm like,
all
uh,
right. So my number 9 game is a game called Ready Set Spaghetti.
whoa.
And this is a Milton Bradley game, so that's all you kind of know. This is a kid's game. This is another one of those games that I'm always on the hunt at thrift stores. But this is one of those like just simple dumb games with such a fun like kind of mechanic. So the game is basically you're 4 people at a table. Each person has like a plastic fork that turns, and you have a string that's connected to it. And then
Mhm.
on the board is these holes that you put in the ingredients. So you're putting like mushrooms and tomatoes and meatballs and peppers in between the strings. So all 4 players have their strings connected to all these pieces on the board, and you're turning these forks. They're kind of like a key, basically, and the string is getting tangled up. And then each player has a die they roll, and it tells you like a component you could pick up. So if you're like, oh, like this, I forget, you're trying to roll for like certain things. Like you want to kind of look for the things that are connected to your string, because the goal of the game is you want to get your colored spaghetti to your fork completely. So you're basically just rolling die. You're like, if it gives you a free choice, you're like, oh, I'll pick up this meatball, and then you turn your fork to bring the string in, and that's kind of it. Like, there's no real strategy, but it's another one of those games that I just have so many memories playing. Like it's just me, my brother, and like my neighbors, and just it's just one of those simple games. But to me, it's just like a classic. I look at the cover and it has
Hmm.
like a super stereotypical Italian guy. It has a grandmother, and then it has this like ultimate 1990s like neon green sunglasses,
Uh,
orange shirt, like just like the most
uh,
90s kid ever. So Ready Set Spaghetti is just one of it's my number 9. It's just a game that I love that I people may not have heard of. Other listeners might be like, okay.
no, it's great. I'm looking at the cover too, and I said, yeah, that kid is quintessential 90s,
Yep, he looks like
100%.
the Burger King
Yeah,
club's
yeah,
kid, like the one cool one.
totally. Yeah, I love this old guy in the background that's just like
Hmm.
shaking his fist in the air. Like
Yeah,
I don't
I
know
don't
if
know if
he's
he's mad,
cheering.
if he's cheering
Yeah,
the old lady on, like
yeah. Like win our rent for this month, Martha,
yeah,
or else
get
we're
that
getting
spaghetti.
evicted. Yeah. My number 9 is a game that has had a lot of controversy over the years on how to actually play it.
Okay.
Is Uno. And I I got this game years and years ago when it came out, and it was a double deck box. You got 108 cards or
Mm,
whatever. And I assume that we're playing the game correctly, but we always house ruled it where if you put the draw 2 down, the next person, if they played a draw 2 and it just kept going, draw 4. Uh, I once we once played this game for money. We played a penny a point,
hmm.
and one of my greatest memories was, and I have terrible luck at games. I like to think I'm a pretty okay gamer, but anytime we're rolling dice or anything like that, I always roll terribly. So this is a personal victory for me. I beat my friend so badly. He went out to the car, he got a roll of quarters and physically threw it at me. I beat him that badly. It was like 1,000 points to like 50. He just
Yeah.
could not. He could not get on the board. But this is a great game that I used to play with my family all the time, friends, family. It was easy. You pulled it out, you shuffled the cards up, and you just went.
Yeah.
And I grew up with a lot of card games. There were a ton of board games back then, but it was, like the Milton Bradley type
Hmm.
games or gimmicks or whatever, but card games were huge in my family. And yeah, definitely Uno is right up there at the top of my list as to making a lot of memories. And these days they have Harry Potter Uno and
It's the
Batman
IP's unlimited.
Uno.
Yeah.
Hmm. Which is interesting. But yeah, that was definitely a game that just cemented itself for me
Hmm.
in the pantheon of just ease of play. If you look at it just graphically designed, it hasn't changed much over the
Nope.
years.
Not at
It's
all,
it's
really.
yeah, it is a classic for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, that is something we'll talk about because that is on my list somewhere. So Uno
Sure.
is
Okay.
also something I love. But what's the controversy? You can't play
Yeah,
plus cards on plus cards?
you're supposed to just play the card and that's it. Then it's the next person's turn. That person draws their cards or whatever, and then that's it. You're not supposed to stack. Um, there's
Yeah,
also the rule
I feel like
where
we
you can.
played that way at my family.
It
Like
was the best way.
the plus 2, and then that person drew 2, and then that was the end of their turn, right?
Ah, yeah. See,
Yeah.
we'd keep stacking, and the stress would go up.
Well, I'm starting to learn that you just make up whatever rules for games. Like it's just clearly
Yeah, house ruling is fun. Uh, totally. Which will come into play in one of my top games, for
okay.
sure. But yeah, that and actually the makers of Uno actually made a post a couple years ago during the pandemic, that you've all been playing this game incorrectly, and people got so
I
angry.
remember that, yeah, because
Yeah.
it was like the plus 4 controversy. Like people were playing
Hmm.
plus 4s on plus 4s, and then yeah,
Yeah, and you're really only supposed to play a draw 4 if you have no. Well, you can play a wild at any time, but you're
yeah,
only supposed to be able to play a wild draw 4 if you have no other recourse.
yeah. That's a bit much.
It's
That's too
which
much.
is yeah, but because people would be like, you can't play that, and then you'd have to challenge the person. Oh, it's a mess. So yeah, we always found just you stacked, and everyone cried a little bit inside.
All right, so my Number 8 is, I swear, my last like weird one. Then they get a little more known, but this one is
Okay.
called Pizza Party. It's from 1987.
I sing this theme song with my girlfriend all the time, by the way. So
You know this game?
I know the commercial. I can hear it in my head. I just played the video for her
I
again like a week ago.
I
Yeah.
didn't know there was a jingle, so I'm gonna look that up. I
Don't do it because it'll get stuck in your head.
that's fine. That's perfect. I know.
Okay.
So I know this game's a little more well known because it was actually featured on an episode of The Goldbergs,
Oh,
which I don't
okay.
watch, but I know the mom like held it up in an episode where there was like a whole board game episode, and they held it up. I
Mm.
was like, oh, it's Pizza Party. I remember that game.
Hmm.
Pizza Party is another one of those like just dirt simple games that just kind of stuck with me throughout the years. And just looking at it just brings a wave of nostalgia that I can't even explain. But it's basically 4 players again. Each person has their own quarter of a pizza. And the goal of the game is that you pick at the beginning of the game what ingredient you want. So it's like if you want pepperoni, mushroom, peppers, or onions. And your goal is basically just to fill your entire quarter with your ingredient only. And I think there's like 7 spots to put ingredients. Super simple. All you're doing is flipping up. All the ingredients are face down. You flip them up. If it's the one you want, you put it on your pizza pie area. If you don't want it, you put it back. And then there's certain ones you flip up and it'll say switch, and you switch your entire piece of pizza, or you switch a certain ingredient with another player. Just
Hmm.
one of those like super simple games, but again, just something I played nonstop as a kid. So it's just like one of those nostalgic classic games that now I need to watch the YouTube video and figure out the song. I have another game on my list that has a theme song that is in my head, I think 395 days of the year because it's
Oh boy.
and we'll get to
Granted,
it.
I probably do too.
Yeah, but so that's Pizza Party.
Mm.
Again, Parker Brothers, another game that I'm always hunting. I found it at a thrift store, but it didn't have all the components in it, so I just didn't even kind
Oh.
of bother. I was pumped. You would have thought I found a piece of gold. I was like, oh, Pizza Party. And I opened it up, which I know you're not supposed to do, but it was missing pieces. Like, I'm not buying this.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta make sure that checks
Yeah,
out, you know?
Goodwill, you're not getting my $2. Get out of here. But that's my number
Uh,
8.
my number 8 is the king of all trivia games. It
Oh,
is Trivial Pursuit.
okay.
And I am old enough to remember when the game first came out with the Blue Box Genus edition before they went all crazy with all sorts of, special editions and entertainment editions. The classic trivia for me. And I don't know, it came out in the 80s. I was probably, 11, 12, 13 years old, but I just loved sitting down with my family. A lot of these games on my list I played with my family.
Hmm.
Supremacy was, of course, with my friends, but I think every other game on this list, besides maybe one, I played with my family. It's just family oriented. And Trivia Pursuit, I have so many great memories of just sitting around with my family, bussing this out, and then everybody seemed to be on equal footing for knowledge. Sometimes when you're doing a trivia game, these days I'm super, super into trivia. You go do pub trivia and stuff like
Hmm.
that. But back in the day, everybody seemed to know, people were good at some things, other people were good. You got a team together, everybody did great.
Hmm.
But yeah, there's a certain stress level of involved with it, trying to get your piece to land on the correct space, to get up to the center, to answer the last question. But yeah, and I think that really helped me out as a kid because I got to learn a lot of things about things and keeping um just that knowledge in my head. And I think I there's one answer that I answered that my uncle looked at me and he said, how did you even know that? And it was, who wrote The Right Stuff? It was the answer to Win the Game, the movie about the Mercury astronauts and the book about the Mercury astronauts. Who wrote the book? And I looked right at him and I don't know where, I'm like 13, 14 years old. I looked right at him and I said, Tom Wolfe. And to this day, I don't honestly know where I pulled that answer from, but it was the correct answer. And he just looked at me and he said, That's actually correct. He's my godfather, and he's always been impressed with my art skill and my knowledge and everything. But at that age, he like looked at me and he's like, "How did you even know that?" And that core memory has been with me for life. And just these days, I had another group of friends that I would play an updated version with, and it was fun, but it wasn't the same, of
Hmm.
those memories of playing with your family. But yeah, Trivial Pursuit is definitely right up there for me in my number 8 slot.
Is that still your go-to trivia game, or
It is. It is.
okay?
If they came out with like all those other like what are the ones you play on your TV with the VHS tape and stuff like
What was
that.
that called? Yeah,
Yeah, stuff like that. Too gimmicky. Like I loved the pie wedges and just the
yeah,
tactile nature of the game. When you got it, you got to put the piece in, and yeah, it's definitely my go-to, and
yeah,
and a little dated at this point, but yeah, it's good.
yeah. I think I had the Disney one that came in like the gold tin, and
Mm.
the
Oh,
pieces went
right.
into like a Mickey shaped one. But I always like trivia games, but they're always just like you kind of said, if you don't play with people that know everything, it's just like a bit
Mm.
much. That's why I like was it Mind the Gap from Solid
Mm.
Roots, and then I love the CDSK game I got. I think I talked about before, where it's like even
Mm.
if you don't know it, you can kind of gauge. So it'll be like, how well do you know Pokemon? And you just say like 1 through 10,
Yeah.
and like the number one answer is like, what color is yellow? And so you'll get at least 1 point. You'll never feel that stupid. But if you
Yeah.
know the topic, you could say 10. It's a hard question, and then you move that many spaces. So I like those kind where it's like you can kind of like pick and choose where your area of expertise is. But Trivial
Yeah.
Pursuit is definitely like a mainstay
It
for
is.
sure.
It definitely is. And I like the feeling of going into like a greasy spoon diner and they've just got stacks of cards,
Yeah.
like hanging out, and you can just pick them up and ask people questions and pass the time until the food comes out.
Yeah, and you can find them every thrift store. I like that. And Seen It. That's the one you're talking about. Seen It
Seen it.
and
Yes, thank
Trivial
you.
Pursuit are like
Yep.
stacked in these thrift stores.
Yep. Yeah, good times.
All right. So my number 7 is one you may have heard of. It's becoming a little bit more mainstream. It's
Hmm.
Key to the Kingdom
Oh, okay.
from
Okay.
Golden Games. I don't know what else they've done. Key to the Kingdom is one of those games that I played with my friends. So this is like definitely, and again, I think this game holds up. It's done so well that Restoration Games have recently remade it and updated it.
Hmm.
But Key to the Kingdom's the original. I still have my original box complete. Is just one of those like early 90s like Dungeons and Dragons light type games where you're rolling dice, you're moving around a board. It was exciting because it was an 8-sided die. So like that was
Oh.
exciting. You're running around, you're collecting items. The board is pretty normal looking, and then you go into these whirlpool spots, and the board opens up to
Whoa.
become even longer and bigger, which was like crazy when you're younger. Like, oh my god, the board's even bigger now, and the artwork is like super like early Dungeons and Dragons, like weird. The monsters are all weird. But basically the story is like you're running around, you're collecting items. There's certain spots where it'll be like the spider is trapped you in its web, and you have to have certain items to get you
Hmm.
out of it, or you're rolling dice to get out of it. It's a very simple, like pretty much I would say like a D&D adventure for kids because you
Hmm.
are kind of doing those D&D type things of getting a sword and a grappling hook and an axe and then fighting these bizarre monsters. So that was a game that like truly stuck out to me as a kid. And I have the updated one. I have my original copy, and it's a game that I'm excited for my son to get a little bit older to introduce to him because I feel like it's that lightweight of a game, but it's an adventure game. It's exciting. So I'm kind of excited to try that with him. But again, it's just one of those games that when I look at the cover and I look at the card art, I'm like, man, like this just fills me with those joys of being a kid again and just a simpler time.
looking at the art on BGG, it definitely evokes that early early Dungeons and Dragons art from
Hmm.
like the old monster manuals and stuff. And yeah, some of it's really, really crazy stuff. Yeah, that
Yeah.
looks great.
Yeah, the monsters were always like bizarre. Like I'm trying to find them now, but it's just like the most weirdly descriptive, like that cackling ghost and the radioactive vampire. It's not just a normal vampire; it has to be like radioactive. And then the one guy is just a goblin, just a goblin.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, just a goblin. He's
Uh,
wearing like a tie and a hat. Like he's just a normal guy. Hellhound, demonic dwarf. I found him. A skull-eating cyclops, insectoid witch, terrible
wow.
tarantula, goblin. Just a goblin.
Just a goblin.
Just a
Yeah.
goblin. So that's my number 7. Key
Hmm.
to the Kingdom, just a classic 1990s game that I love so much.
Nice. That is that. I wish I got to play that as a kid. That looks
Hmm.
really, really fun.
Yeah,
Uh,
it wouldn't hold up with adults, but as a
yeah.
kid game for sure.
My number 7 is the oldest game on the list, but it's still widely played and loved to this day. And it, in some ways, is one of the original board games. I'll put that in quotes, air quotes. You can't see that, but it's cribbage. It is
Okay.
cribbage. So this is a game that I learned as a kid, probably, when I was like 8 or 9. It was taught to me, and I promptly forgot how to play over the next 20 something years of my life. And then I relearned, one of my buddies was a big cribbage fan, and he taught our friend group to play. And I absolutely love this game. If I'm playing a board game with somebody, I love to teach games. I love to be that ambassador that comes in and teaches people how to play games. And sometimes I'll just sit out and teach 4 people how to play a game. I don't even care if I play. I taught my whole dorm to play this game.
Mm.
And I still have one of my buddy's boards. I'm in touch with him, but he moved out of the dorm at a time where I wasn't in the dorm. I ended up going back to the dorm and getting my stuff and had his board. And he knows I have it. And I'm like, at any point you want it back, he's like, you keep it. So that's a little nostalgia for me. But I have a lot of great memories of playing cribbage in college, in the or mid 90s, late 90s, mid 90s, and just teaching everybody to play. And it is the pretty much the only game that I trash talk at. That and spades. But if you're playing cribbage with me and we are playing teams, which you can play team cribbage, or even if we're playing 3 player or 2 track, I will trash talk like nobody's business. Not in a mean way, but yeah, that kind of,
Yeah.
just that little
Competitive,
goading,
yeah.
competitive, yeah, and always be smiling. No matter how much, if I get double skunked in a game of cribbage, I don't care, because you know what? Each game is like 10, 15 minutes long. You shuffle up the cards, you deal them again. I'm a super poor loser. I'll say it right now. I hate it. I hate losing. But at a game like cribbage, I don't care if I get beat and I get totally destroyed. I'm always shuffling the cards up. We're playing
Mm.
again. It's just a fun game for me. And I just saw there's a social media ad that's going around on like Instagram, and some people have sent it to me so far. A game called Battle Cribbage or something.
Okay.
It's just like this crazy 3 track that like winds around itself and everything. And there's these offshoot peg areas where normally you'd have 5 peg holes to go from one point to the other, but you go on this offshoot that takes like 10, and you have to like circle around. You can force your opponents onto these things. It looks absolutely insane. Um, but yeah, I taught so many people how to play this game, and it just brings back a lot of great memories for me. And it's definitely a game that I love to teach people. If you love any just playing cards of any kind, you just I've had my own custom cribbage board
I
made.
was just about to ask that. So I've never
Yeah.
played this game.
Oh man,
And I'm
it is
looking on
great.
BGG and I'm seeing like the most
Mm.
outrageous custom boards. So I'm like, what is this?
It's the game where there's a certain combination of cards that you can have in your hand, and every round you cut a card. There is a certain hand that if you get that hand, it's called a 29 hand. That is the highest point that you can score. Tradition states that you burn the deck,
Hmm.
you keep the hand, you keep the cut card, and you have to get it framed. It's like when you get a hole in one, you have to pay for a round of drinks in Japan, like they have
Yeah,
clubhouse insurance for these people.
yeah, yeah.
In cribbage, like I have gotten a 28 hand once in my life and never had a 29 hand. But if you get it, you have to do this ritual um, and destroy the deck, keep the hand, get it framed.
Very
But it's
interesting.
so great. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I have to look into that. The boards are cool, and I'm looking at
Oh
on
yeah.
BGG. There's a picture of this couple playing on Splash Mountain at Disneyland. So
No, that's hardcore.
yeah, that's a bit much, but yeah, some of these boards are cool looking. I don't know what's going on, but there's like a Spider-Man one, there's a train one, Jurassic Park.
Wow.
Yeah, it's cool.
I have to look that up.
Yeah, I
Sounds
have to look
awesome.
into that. All right, so cribbage, and that was what, your number?
Seven.
That was your number 7. All right, so my number 6, we're getting into the normal, more known games.
Hmm.
Is Yahtzee. I
Oh,
absolutely love Yahtzee. It's one of those family games. It's one of those games that I will never turn down playing.
oh.
I love games that incorporate that Yahtzee mechanic, like King of Tokyo. I think this is
Hmm.
why I always say I love rolling dice. I think it's from Yahtzee. Like I love that cup noise with the dice in it is just like so satisfying. So I think a
Yes.
lot of those games like that have the Yahtzee style of dice rolling and re-rolling like really stand out to me, and I think it's because I love Yahtzee so much.
Hmm.
And I hate math, but I love Yahtzee.
Yahtzee is that my grandmother had a set of that growing up. I played that. It actually kind of makes my honorable mentions just from that nostalgia standpoint. But
mm,
yeah, you just there's that push your luck
hmm
aspect of it. You don't definitely need to know math a lot, but there's certain aspect of it that's like just so much fun. I've seen so many other games that try to do that. Like I love King of Tokyo, that push your luck mechanic. I think between Yahtzee and King of Tokyo, that's it. Like that's the two holy grail games right there of like pushing your luck and rolling
Yeah,
dice,
and that mechanic, yeah.
yeah, everybody else is a pretender, or tries to do too much with it. Those two are just fun. Yeah, Yahtzee's great. And I've since found an edition of Yahtzee that's a reprint that has the same art that my grandmother's 1953 edition or something had.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
Class. It's got the professor on it, the Yahtzee looking professor and the cup
Oh,
with the dice and everything. Yeah, I
yeah.
loved
There's
Yahtzee.
there's so many versions. I have like the Doctor Who one. I think that's like the
Oh,
one that I own. I don't have the original, but they have like it's IP crazy. It's become Uno,
it
where it's just
is.
like, hey, here's you can roll dice at a Batman's head. Like, it's just
Oh, the Dice Crusader.
yeah.
Mm.
There's no different mechanics. Like it's just the nightmare. I'm actually looking at Nightmare for Christmas one's cool. This looks like Oogie Boogie's dice. I
Oh,
might
that's
have to
awesome.
throw that in my Amazon cart real quick.
Yeah, if those dice glow in the dark, I'd be there in a second for
No, they
sure.
might. But that's
Mm.
mine. My number 6. I love Yahtzee. It's just that's a
Yahtzee.
true classic.
That is. My number six is Escape from Death Star. Star Wars, Escape from the Death Star
I think I
game.
know this one.
My cousins had this, and it was a multi-stage game where you tried to get out of the Death Star, and then you actually had to make an attack run on the Death Star. And it's since been reprinted in a couple of editions where you actually get action figures with the
Yes.
edition.
So that's the
Yeah.
one I know. It comes with the bad
Hmm.
guy Tarkin, the newest
Yep.
one. Yep.
Yeah. And there was one that came out in the 90s, which had that like, or 2000s, which had that like green gradient they put on everything. And that came with a Luke and a Han and Stormtrooper outfit, I believe.
Okay.
Because at one point in the game, you can actually get stuck in the trash compactor and you have to get out of the trash compactor. But I had so many great memories. My cousins had this, and it was kind of like you just I think you just flipped cards. Oh, there was a spinner. That's right. It's had this janky spinner that like was built into the top of this box that you like, flicked and you
Hmm.
did your movement. But you had to collect the pieces of the Death Star plans and then deliver them to the Millennium Falcon. And then, oh, that's what it was. You had to then escape the TIE fighter. There's a grid at the top which has TIE fighters and blank space in it. You had to plot your way out, and then you made it to back to the rebel base. So you all start at the trash compactor and then work your way through the Death Star. Um, but I had so much fun playing this with
Did all the characters have stats? Like it looks like there's like a stat sheet too.
no, not in the edition that I played.
Okay.
It was just you basically had like a Han and Chewie standee or a Luke and Leia standee. And I think you had two of each color and you had to move them around. They might have given people like stats and stuff to make it a little bit more, flesh it out a little bit
Yeah, I think
more.
there must be two games that are similar.
Hmm. But it was a lot of fun. Yeah, and that definitely played that a ton. Whenever I'd go over to my cousin's house, I'd be like, "Can we play that?" And the answer was usually yes.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It looks neat. Like it looks like one of those old games. I can see the
It
spinner
does.
and the standees are just like pieces of paper you fold over. And
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. And the spinner was always so janky. Like,
yeah,
you know,
I can tell just from looking at it.
yeah. Yeah. Good times.
Very cool though. I like the artwork. Again,
Mhm.
it's that black and white, like, but like drawn,
Yes.
like
Yep.
characters.
Hmm. Yeah, it had a
Nice.
certain charm to it for
Yeah, it
sure.
sure does. I like that. That's very cool. Yeah, I've seen the box, and because I think at Ollie's they had the one with General Tarkin in it, and
Yes, I just saw that on
I
there.
was like, should I
Yeah.
buy this? And I was like, nah, it's all right. All right, so that's your number six. My number five is categories. Um, I love word games, and I again love dice, and it has some dice in it. But categories is another one that we played a lot when I was growing up. Um, and I want to say it definitely helped me learn words and probably helped my reading a lot. Like I feel like I played it younger than I should have. Do you know what categories kind of is?
Yeah, highly controversy amongst my friend group.
Oh, okay. But
I love it though. I love it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if anyone doesn't know, categories is basically just like you roll a dice, you have a list in front of you of 12 like categories. So if you roll the letter R and your list has like baby food in spot one, famous duos and trios in two, you need to find or think of corresponding words to go with your list that is the letter that you've rolled. Like it's a very interesting idea for a game that's very simple but extremely challenging.
Hmm.
Where it's almost like trivia. It's like, how well do I know song titles and body parts? Well, you know them well, but do you know if they start with the letter E? Like it adds that little bit of like
Mm.
challenge to it. So that was a game we played a lot growing up. Me and my brother really played it a lot ad nauseum. I remember cheating at it for sure. And this is pre-phone, so to cheat, you really had to cheat.
Yes. Go grab that dictionary. I love it. I played it with my friends a ton. The controversial part comes in to the fact that I don't like to play with people who use adjectives as the words. So say you have question eight is fruit, and you've rolled an R, and somebody puts raspberry, but somebody's like red raspberry, and I know if you have raspberry and raspberry, they cancel out. But anyway, but say that someone just puts red raspberry, and they're like, that's 2 points because you've done in the old school version. I guess the new school version got rid of that. You don't get multiple points. Like Wonder Woman isn't two
Yeah, I don't
points,
remember
it's
that being
one.
an option, like
Yeah,
or
this was an
a point.
option. And this used to always cause a lot of people would
That
be like,
that
yeah,
absolutely does
bright
not
red
count.
raspberry. Yeah, I know. That's what I would say, but I get people that would adamantly say like ripe red raspberry, that's three
Ripe
points. And I'm
red
like,
get out of here.
yeah, yeah, come on. Get out of here with
Your
that.
friend group is cheaters.
Well, our friend group was good. When you invite those weirdo strangers into play, the new people. got to be very insular, you know.
Hmm.
But yeah, category is big fan of that too,
Yeah,
for sure.
that's my number five.
My number five is Scrabble.
Okay.
Um, I played very early. I started reading very early. I love words. I love word games. And my grandmother and my mother and my aunt used to always play this. And I remember, just loving to be included in this. And my grandmother had the deluxe board in the 80s that was like a Lazy Susan that had the
Mm.
plastic grid that you lock the tiles into.
Oh,
I had my
that's probably the
own.
best version.
It's so good. I had my own version in the 70s that my mom bought me, like in 1977. That's just a board. And I still remember this. My mom and I sat down one day and we sorted out the letters, and it came with like 20 extra tiles. We don't know why. There were like five extra A's because they have the letter count right on the side of the
Yeah.
board. And it came with a bunch of extra stuff. So I remember my mom, she took them and she put them in a plastic baggie and she rolled it up and she taped it with masking tape and she wrote extra letters on it. And when I go do trivia, one of the trivia guys used to always ask an anagram. So I would bring my bag of Scrabble tiles with me so we could spell out the anagram with.
Hmm.
And some of them got ruined or lost, but you can find copies of the game to this day, and it's been reprinted God knows how many times. But
Yeah.
I loved that. When Words with Friends became a craze, I did not like it because the board was different. Um, yeah, but they used a lot of like weird words that I don't agree with. But anyway, Scrabble, definitely just being able to make amazing words and so if someone makes a word that I didn't know as a kid, I'd be like, file that away,
Hmm.
learn what that thing is. But my family wasn't the kind that was like challenging every word either. We had the Scrabble dictionary, the official Scrabble dictionary
Yeah.
in case, but for the most part, we just sat down and played and had a lot of good times with that.
Yeah, that's a game I didn't grow up with. Like the
Mm,
categories would have been mine, but
okay.
it's a game that now I appreciate and play more for sure. Like Scrabble, it's definitely. I think the
Mm,
word with friends, I was like, oh, this is like Scrabble, right? And then I started playing Scrabble a bit more. But yeah, it's
mm.
not a game I grew up with, but a game I think definitely deserves to be on a list. It's incredible.
It is. If you think about the elegance of it, and
Yep.
when I'm working on games these days, I think about the play testing that goes into them and the balancing. And like, if you think about how elegant the Scrabble board is and how the spaces are where they are, and I've watched documentaries on Scrabble before, and these guys can make 8-letter words out of anything.
Hmm.
Their knowledge base is so great. Um, but just if you look at the board where the doubles and triples are, it's so well balanced and well
Yeah,
thought out.
it's aesthetically pleasing. Like
It
it fits.
is.
So then when you're clinking those tiles on, it's definitely one of those games where it's like, I understand why
Mm,
this is like gonna
tactile.
be forever.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, my next one. Oh, this is a big one. This is a
Mm.
don't boo me, don't log out. But my number four is Monopoly. I
Well,
know.
we should just talk
Boo.
about this at the same time because my number four is Monopoly
All
also.
right, perfect.
Yeah, I can't believe it. That is actually hilarious.
I
Wow.
know in the gaming community, Monopoly is kind of poo-pooed for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
I think Monopoly is a great game. Like I think it's one of those games where RP kind of joked about before, you're kind of born from the womb and they hand you a Monopoly copy.
Yeah.
Like it's just I think everyone on this planet has
Mm-hmm.
probably played Monopoly or some kind of iteration of Monopoly. And it's a great game because it's a great game. It's undeniable.
Yeah, it is. It's classic. It's the
Hmm.
classic roll and move, flip cards, screw people over. It's
Yep.
not always your fault either. I mean, people are rolling, and we never played with the mortgaging stuff, but you can get kind of in depth with it if you want
Hmm.
to. But yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there was a documentary on Monopoly that I watched, and it was like
Mm.
these people were intense about it. And like the rules that this is another one of those games where like everyone had a family rule. but they were playing like a
Yes.
certain way, and I was just like, oh, interesting. And like I said, there's
Yeah.
a if you know of an IP, there's a Monopoly copy for it. Like it's
Oh yeah.
insane, like how much they print. It's like, oh, Wolverine, Deadpool, there's a Monopoly. Oh, there's
Yep.
Monopoly. Philadelphia, there's a Monopoly. Like it's almost disgusting because you're like, who is buying this? Like, why?
I yeah, exactly. I
Because
have
even at
two IPs.
Ollie's, yeah, at Ollie's right now, I went today. And if you don't know, Ollie's is just kind of like a dumping ground of overstock, like type of store. And I
Hmm.
think I counted, there's 8 different versions of Monopoly in there. There's like Wakanda
Wow.
Monopoly, Fall Guys Monopoly. Like it's just,
Oh my God.
and they're all like $3 and no one's buying them.
It's fine. I own two. I own Star Wars Monopoly, and the other one I own that I think is genius for one reason is Lord of the Rings Monopoly.
Okay.
If you play with the alternate rule, you place the ring on go, and anytime somebody rolls doubles, you move the ring one space. The game actually ends when the ring makes it all the way around the board. So
Okay.
the
So it
game
has an end.
It does have an end, and it can go quick. If people roll doubles like a ton, that ring goes right around the board.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's that was the kind of
All
the
right.
kitschiest like house, like IP rule that I found for
Yeah.
Monopoly. So
I have to ask, which Star Wars Monopoly do you have?
um I think I have the anniversary edition.
The
Yeah.
1997 limited collector's
Yes.
edition one?
Yes, I do.
Ah,
Yeah.
you
You
and
have the
I
same
were
one?
meant to be. We're meant to be
I know. Look
friends.
at this. Yeah.
That is
Oh
the
my God.
version that I grew up on.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
That is the one that came with like a
Yeah.
metal coin. It
Yes.
had
And
or
the
metal
pewter
coins.
figures. Yeah.
It had the Millennium Falcon. Like they were the hotels. The pewter
Yes.
pieces were all the star. I I remember being a kid and playing that game like solo, where like I would have all the good guys, the bad guys like going around the board, and the good guys were trying to like steal. I don't remember how I played, but I remember like because it was Star Wars, I was like, all right, like all the good guys are trying to stop the bad guys from buying things. And I don't remember how I played it, but I just remember being young and just be like, oh, like this is a
Yeah.
neat addition. I'll make it up in my head. But that is the
Uh,
Monopoly that I grew up on. I have since lost it, and
oh
and
no.
they're numbered, and I just remember
Yeah.
like loving that version. That's the version I'm always hunting down. But that's so
Uh,
funny. So you said Star Wars Monopoly. I was like, oh, does he have the
yeah. Does
the
he have that one?
1997 limited edition?
Back when I was big in the board game community on Instagram, that made up like the bulk of my Star Wars Day posts.
Mm,
May 4th. I'd take pictures of that. I'm like, it can't get any crazier than limited edition anniversary Star Wars
oh,
Monopoly
that was
game.
the best. It was so it glitter all
So
over
good.
it. It was the best.
Yeah. Oh, good times.
Oh, that was
That's
my
funny that it
that's my
was
number
number
one
four.
now. Star Wars
Yeah,
Monopoly. That's my
yeah. Moving it. Rest of the list. Get out of here.
but yeah, Monopoly, I understand why it's poo-pooed, but you
Yep.
can't deny
You
it's
can't.
the king.
Hmm.
It's funny because I had the podcast, I'm like, yeah, like I do a board game podcast. It's normally like Monopoly. And I'm like, yes, we just play Monopoly every week, or we get like
Yeah.
D&D. It's like, you guys play D&D? I'm like, no. But that's it. Like that's people's knowledge is just like Monopoly. Like that's a board game.
Yep.
But
Yeah, it
that's
is.
awesome. We matched on something.
We did. We did.
So my that was both our number four is Monopoly.
Yeah, hilarious.
My number three is showing my age again, but it is
Mhm.
the Pokemon Master Trainer game.
Oh,
This came
nice.
out in probably 97, 99. I was huge into Pokemon. I still really enjoy Pokemon, but this was like peak Pokemon time for me. This is when I was
Mhm.
kind of playing board games. This is a beautiful coffin box game where you're kind of going around and you're collecting the different Pokemon with dice roll. It has the original 150 as Pogs. And this
Wow.
was a game that I played a ton of as a kid because, again, my neighbors, my friends, like we're all about the same age. And Pokemon was the late 90s Ninja Turtles. We moved on from Ninja Turtles. Now we're playing Pokemon. I
Wow.
still have my edition of this game. It's complete. I know this game is pretty sought after because it's hard to keep complete because as a kid you normally just
Oh,
lose things. But I still have mine. It's a cherished like prize. Like it's gone through every move. I've lost the Star Wars game, I lost other stuff, but this game is usually like the first thing I wrap and pack and make sure it's kept nice. The
yeah.
game is awful. It's it's a it's a roll and move, but the final like battle I remember just being like insanely hard and like mathy with dice and just very janky. But it's just one of those games that just kind of like stuck with me. I was like, oh, this is a great game. It has all 150 Pokemon. Now there's 900, and but
Oh,
it's
too
just
many.
one of those games where it just takes me back to a better time.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can only imagine just like the awe of being a kid and having all like these 150 Pokemon, you
It
know.
and the box, like the front cover has all 150 on it. Like
Wow.
it just was, yeah, it was definitely like I could collect all the Pokemon I like, and that was it. It was the Pogs were flipped upside down, so you didn't know what they were. So you'd flip them up, and you're like, oh, it's Gengar. Like I love that guy. Then you'd roll the dice to try to catch him, and he's a part of your team. And like it was the excitement of flipping and collecting and not knowing what you were getting, just like kind of the video game. Like it's, but again,
Yeah.
terrible game, but a huge wave of nostalgia.
Hmm. The precursor to Pokemon Go. Didn't even have
Yeah,
to leave the
yeah. It
house.
was when I actually had to interact with people.
Hmm.
So that's
My
my number
number three.
three. I'm
Oh,
assuming you're the
sorry.
same, right? Your number three
Yeah,
is
yeah.
Pokemon
It's
Master. Yeah,
Pokemon. Yeah, I think we're gonna match from here on out. So
perfect.
my number one, and my number three is the card game Rummy.
Okay.
This is probably one of the first games that I learned. My mom taught me how to play this game. And she played Rummy with my grandmother, and my family played card games and stuff. But she taught me Rummy, and just that got me into all sorts of other card games throughout my life. But Rummy, it's probably like 5, 6 years old when she taught me to play this game, and
Mm,
I absolutely loved it. And it taught me, like set collection and runs and that kind of thing, and just choices. Do I pick up that card? Do I not? Do I do this? Do I do that? Do I take a risk and pick all these cards up? And Rummy is one of those games that has a ton of house rules.
mm.
Everybody that does not play the way that I play is wrong.
Your cheating ways, yes.
You're cheating. I play where my aces are, if used ace 2 3 are 5 points. If it's ace king queen, they're 10, and if they're ace ace ace, they're 15. So it gives it that. Am I going for the higher point stakes by trying to collect all the aces, or am I just going to ditch it from my hand? Oh, and it's minus 15 if it's in your hand when someone goes out. So do I try to get rid of it quick and have it be minimal points? Do I try to ramp it up and go for that face card capper, or do I go for the grand tier? And also, we played where we didn't wrap around. I know some people that go like king ace 2, and that incenses me. um I know I sound like such a snob, but it's definitely the nostalgia of my mom teaching me this game.
Mm,
And this is like the number two game, that number three game on my list. The two that are left on my list are going to be the games I learned first. But Rummy is definitely the kind of the starter for me to get
mm.
into just gaming. And we would play a ton of this, like every night, just sit down and play a game of Rummy, and yeah, it's good stuff.
So I've never played Rummy.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah. It's funny because a lot I like my family just didn't play card games. Like I'm talking like
Ah.
a classic deck of cards like Ace and
Hmm.
all. I
Yeah.
I still really don't understand poker. I don't know,
Wow.
like because I didn't grow up with them, and I tell people that and they're like, "You
Yeah.
didn't play card games?" I was like, "No, like I don't." I remember playing board games as a kid, but we never really played
Yeah.
like a deck of card games. War. I remember playing War
Oh,
nonstop,
war. Yeah.
but that's
Yeah.
kind of it. Like it's I and hearing like your story, and like when I talk to other people and they talk about these nights at a table and just playing with that deck of
Mm.
cards, like I'm just like, I was like, wow, that sounds really nice. I mean, I have my memories of my family, but for some reason, like a deck of card games just wasn't
Yeah.
like my family's kind of thing.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's you definitely had to have that family that played, like,
Mm,
or just that friend group that played when you were younger. I know I have some friends that just played poker as,
mm,
like with their friends, like in college and stuff like that. And I- I'm not big on poker, probably because, like I said before, I have terrible luck. But yeah, like I got to the point where I'm like, oh, you never played this? You never played card games? And like,
mm,
oh no, never really played card games. But that goes along the lines of me teaching games. Like I love to teach card
mm.
games, and yeah, Rummy, just because it was like the first game, one of the first games that was taught to me. And I could be like, wow, this is amazing. I can do all these different things. It's a simple deck of cards, but it's got all the strategy with it.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I know
yeah.
Rama Cube. Is that
Oh,
same?
Rummy Cube. Yeah, no, not well. There is set collection. It's basically, instead of cards, it's tiles.
Mm,
So you are trying to make sets and lay them down, but in Rummy you just have cards,
mm.
and it's
Yeah,
different
I
than
learned that
Gin Rummy.
recently, Rubber Cube. I was like, oh, this is a fun game. They're like, you never played this game? I was like, nope.
Yeah, me either. I think I learned it like 6 years ago. I
Mm,
finally learned Rummy Cube, and it's like it got the Spiel des Jahres, I think, and a bunch of it's in the top pantheon of like classic board games. I'm
yeah.
like, no, I never played it.
It should be on our
Um,
list, but it's not.
yeah, it should. It should. We'll just scratch the rest of the list off,
Yeah.
and we'll put Rummy Cube on there. But yeah, that and then Gin Rummy, you play where you just hold all the cards in your hand, and Rummy, you're putting the sets down as you go, so you
Mm,
can kind of see when your opponent is ready to like go out. In
hmm.
in Gin Rummy, you keep everything in your hand. That information is hidden, and then you just dump your hand at once and say gin, and then watch the other person get very angry.
Oh, I would like that version better.
Yeah, that's hardcore. That's for the hardcore people.
All right, so Rummy, you're number three.
Yep.
Uh, my number two is the one that I have the song stuck in my head all the time.
Oh,
Uh,
good.
Crossfire. Do
Ugh.
you know what Crossfire is?
I do. I think kids lost eyes or limbs to this game with the metal ball bearings, right?
Yep. So Crossfire, it's barely even a game, but it's basically just these two gun type apparatuses attached to a board. There were, I would say, two things that you put on the board. One was a triangle, and one was like a sun shaped thing, and they had like marbles on them, so they rolled pretty easily. And then, as you said, you shot these ball bearings trying to hit these objects into your opponent's like well. They just had like a well in front of them. I played the crap ton out of this game. Crossfire was life. Like me and my brother would just play Crossfire nonstop, and just it has a nostalgia factor to it. It has a like kinetic energy to it where you have this, like I said, it's a little gun thing that was stuck to the board and these little ball bearings, so you were like tapping like bang 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 bang, and then you had to use your other hand to load them in the top to keep your side fed. Your opponent could be scummy and let you shoot all the balls and not shoot any back at you, and then just have like an unlimited amount to bounce back.
Wow.
And as I said, the commercial for this game was
I remember
so
it.
90s, where it was like the most leather jacket, sunglass kids, and the one was like flying on one of the objects you're shooting at, and they're like, there's fire everywhere. There's people around these two kids shooting these ball bearings. And then the song was like, Crossfire. Like, you don't get caught up. And it's so stupid.
Yes.
But I will
Oh,
hum that song to myself a
wow.
lot. More than I would like to admit.
Yeah, I think that one also lives in my head rent free along with Power Wheels, the
Yeah,
Power Wheels commercial.
power
Power
wheels.
Wheel, exactly. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, that is 100% nostalgia hit right there for
Oh,
sure.
Crossfire. It was the best. It wasn't even a real game. It was just an excuse
Yeah,
to just shoot stuff.
shoot stuff. Oh my God, yeah. Oh.
And I remember
Yeah,
like
I
putting
think
my GI Joes on there and like shooting them. Like it wasn't even the game. It just became, what can I shoot with these
this
BBs?
above and beyond. What
Yeah.
can I do that is not the intended use of this thing?
Now this is like probably a choking hazard and just
Oh yeah,
unacceptable because of the
I
gun.
think
And
if you didn't eat a ball bearing as a child, I think they just force fed you one just in
yeah,
case.
I
So
probably still have one in me. It's just there.
oh my God. Oh, my number two is not so violent with ball bearings. But it is the second board game I ever learned as a child, and that would be Sorry.
Mm,
Um, and this game carries a lot of weight, a lot of nostalgia for me. In fact, I found a reprint of it and I bought it and I immediately returned it because it was trash. They updated the rules they took out. So in Sorry, it's kind of like a cheesy kind of variant where you have all of your guys at a start space. You're trying to get them all the way around the board and into your home base.
hmm
Along the way, if you encounter somebody else, you knock them off the board. If someone hits you, you get knocked off using a deck of cards for your turn. It's not a roll and write. It's flip and flip and move,
hmm
as the kids would say these days. Um, and with a 4, you moved 4 spaces backwards. It was not advanced 4. An 11, I believe you could move 1 or 11. 7, you could split between 2 pieces, like 6 and 1, 5 and 2, etc. But the updated variant, the reprint, did not have any of that. There were like 2 special cards in the deck. The deck has 1 through 12 in it. And I was very incensed at it. I'm like, this is not what I wanted. But then I since found another reprint of it that is, looks like a vintage cover, and it is the exact old school rules. But I got that for Christmas probably when I was 6. And absolutely fell in love with this game. I played it all the time. It's definitely one of the first games that I learned that taught you uh you know to deal with the fact that you're so close to victory and it can be snatched away from you at the
hmm
last second by a random card thing. But it was definitely an early core memory for me of just setting up the board, putting the pieces on. It's probably when I first got my love of the color yellow. That's my favorite color as an artist. I love to use yellow, and I love to be the yellow pieces in that. And yeah, so Sorry is my number 2.
And that's the one with the slide, right? Where you hit the
Yes.
triangle and then you slide and you
And
could
if
bash
anybody
the other
is in
person.
that,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah, they got rid of the slides too, I think, in the reprint.
What?
They like neutered the entire game. I'm like, this is not what I want.
They just made it a move and like we're old
Yeah,
move then. That's
yeah,
the
pretty
slide was
much.
it. What's the point of the
Yeah.
game? Those
You
slide.
know, people talk these days about games that you play with other people, but you feel like you're playing solo. There's no
hmm
interaction. Sorry has a ton of interaction. You're knocking pieces off. You're like
hmm
choosing whether but the new ones just,
And then you have
yeah,
choice because you're like, oh, I'm in the middle of a
Mhm.
slide and like
Yeah,
Aaron's coming up behind me. I need to
yep.
either move this piece or that piece. Like it was just,
hmm
yeah, if no
Take the
slide, what's the
risk.
point? There's no threat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah, that's my number 2.
yeah, Sorry's a great one. I think my version of Sorry is the other one. What's the with the
The
Pop-O-Matic or
Oh, Trouble. Is it Trouble?
Trouble? Yeah,
Yeah, I'll give you Trouble. Yeah.
Trouble would be mine. It's very similar without the
hmm
slide, but it's
Oh, I had that Pop-O-Matic bubble though.
yeah, the
As a
Pop-O-Matic
kid, I
bubbles.
always wanted that.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely
Mm,
played that more than Sorry, but no, Sorry's a
yeah.
great game for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, my number
Uh,
one is a game that
mm,
you already
Drum
mentioned,
roll. Oh,
Uno.
wow. Wow.
Uno is
Okay.
my
Wow.
number one. Uno, you had like cribbage and your deck of cards. Uno was ours.
Yeah.
Like I played
Wow.
Uno at so many family functions. My family, my now wife's family plays Uno.
Wow.
As a teacher, I use Uno a lot to teach numbers and colors, and we'll play Uno with the kids. So this
Mm,
might be like the most like played game because I use it a lot. Like there's a lot of times where I'm like, oh, like how can I do this? And I'll look up and find a lesson plan with Uno cards. I'm like, oh, I have so many Uno cards. I have
Wow.
Mario. I have like a lot of things that kids like because I'll just get them at like Five Below because they're so cheap.
Yeah.
And then it just the kids enjoy it. It's easy for them. Like it's one of those games that I not only have played nostalgically as a kid, but will never say no to playing Uno.
Oh, yeah. It's so easy.
Yeah.
And like it's like I said, it's one of those games where like, I had a couple stressful experiences with my friends, like if we played for money, whatever, but it's one of those games where you play it and it's just in that moment where like you can easily just play it again, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Um, yeah. Actually, I just looked it up. It came out the year that I was born, 71. So that's kind of funny.
Mm.
I was wondering when Uno came out. Yeah, 71. So
That's
yeah, I
it.
think
It's one of
yeah,
those
that's
games that you
it.
just think is
Yeah.
ancient, like
It's a
for ancient
it
times.
I know it does say in the BGG write-up that it's a commercial version of Crazy Eights. So
Okay.
you're which I played maybe twice in my life, but yeah, it's just so elegant and simplistic in its
Mm-hmm.
nature. And like you said, if you can teach it to kids, that's great because you're teaching them skills
Mm-hmm.
and problem
Yeah,
solving and
and not
choices. Yeah.
even not even just as the game, but I'll use it in different lesson plans of just the
Hmm.
numbers or just the colors and but
Wow.
yeah, playing it even as Uno, it's just as you said, teaching them how to play
That's awesome.
games and how to think and also how to lose because I don't pull punches. If you're
Yeah, no, no.
I
Hey
don't
kid, you're
believe in
going
coddling
down.
kids. They need to lose.
Yeah, totally. 100%.
But yeah, it's just one of those games again where there's an IP for everything. And
Mm.
some of them do change the game a bit for the
Yep.
better, but it's just as a classic, I think Uno is my number one.
That's great. We had two matches, including
Yeah,
one exact match. So that's great. That's awesome. Yeah, I love that you could play, play with the families and stuff too, and the kids.
yeah.
That's awesome.
It's easy to teach anybody, and again, I don't think anybody poo-poos Uno like they do Monopoly.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I uh yeah, I agree. It's a really solid classic game.
All right, you're number one.
Okay, here we go. This one's going to be a little controversial. This is my lowest ranked game on BGG
Oh,
with a 3.2. And this is only in the slot for 100% nostalgia reasons. It is not a great game. It is not a game that like you're going to be going to a tournament for or it is Candyland.
oh,
Uh,
I
uh,
love Candyland.
I think as a kid, kids fell into two camps. You had the kids that got Candyland, and you had the kids that got Shoots and Ladders. I
I
never had
hate
Shoots
shoots
and
and
Ladders.
ladders.
Yeah, talk about games that taught you like disappointment.
Nothing.
Nothing good can come of Shoots and Ladders or Snakes and Ladders if you're British, I think, or something. But either way, I fell into the Candyland camp. I think I got my first copy of Candyland when I was like 4 and I played it so much with my family, and it's so simplistic. Once again, a game where you don't use dice, you're just flipping cards, and
Hmm.
you anticipated getting that double color card. And yeah, I I got to play it like a couple of years ago with my girlfriend's niece and nephew, and just
Oh,
looked at it and was like,
all the updated characters. Ugh.
the updated characters, and I'm like, this game is harsh. Like one bad move and you're all the way back to start. Like I don't
Yeah.
remember that crushing disappointment as a child. The art was amazing. I grew up going to see like Star Wars and watching all these fantasy movies and sci-fi and stuff. And it just had this great feel to it and just
Hmm.
colorful and
The movers were
it's
fun.
yeah, the movers were fun. You got these little gingerbread people, and yeah, it just overall was a great game. And looking on BGG, I just read this fun fact, which makes it even more endearing. It was created by Eleanor Abbott in the early 1940s to entertain children recovering from polio. I mean, how more wholesome can you get from a 1949 game than kids recovering from polio
Yeah.
playing this game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this
Yeah.
might bump out one of those other ones at the top. Like Candyland is
Yeah.
a
Yeah. It's
great
solid.
game, and
It is.
I have a lot of good memories too. My grandmother had this in her closet when we'd visit, and I remember the
Yeah.
Lord Licorice and Gloopy Swamp and all those
Yeah.
characters for sure.
So good. And not much has changed on it a ton. I mean, they added more personality characters to it, but the locations are all kind of the same.
Hmm.
The cut throughs are the same. You're not going out and you're not buying expansions for this
Yeah,
game. Restoration Games isn't remaking it,
not
like
yet.
Thunder Road Vendetta. Not yet, but who knows? But yeah, it's just an elegant, simple game that carries
Hmm.
a lot of nostalgia for me. But yeah, this is the first board game, like I said, that I ever owned and learned. Which got, everyone's like, how did you get into the hobby, man? Like, what got you addicted? I'm like, well, thank you, Milton Bradley.
Candyland. Nah, this is like a absolute classic for sure. It's
Yeah.
just I played it, but it wasn't like it's not one that I have good memories, but it's not one
Okay.
that like I owned. I don't know if I've ever owned Candyland. Like trying to think back.
Yeah.
Like I said, my grandmother had her closet, so we visit her, we'd play it, but I don't think I've
Hmm.
ever owned it. But it
That's
is
funny
funny. I'm
because too.
looking at like the characters, and I'm like, I was like, oh yeah, this is nice, little plumpy, and
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. It's good stuff. And it's had so many iterations of the art throughout the years.
Yeah, I'm
I've
seeing
gone over,
the IP creep in it too. Like just
yeah.
Dora the
I just saw
Explorer,
Dora the
Disney.
Explorer.
Yeah,
Oh, man. Yeah. But yeah, that's my number one.
that's a good one. That's a solid pick.
Yeah. Can I give an honorable mention to something? We have time
No,
for
we're
that?
out of time. Absolutely not. No, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, gotta go. Bye. Disconnect call. I gotta give two honorable mentions. And the first one's gotta be Axis and Allies.
Okay.
Um, my buddies and I, in addition to playing Supremacy, this is what we transitioned into when Supremacy, we got tired of it, which we didn't for years. But my friend had a copy of Axis and Allies, a lot of great memories in Axis and Allies. And I feel that Axis and Allies, although unfortunately it's one of those games where you have to do the same one or two strategies every time in order to be viable and win, but it's still the the coolness of pulling your pieces, your miniatures off the board and putting them onto a battle mat and then rolling dice and then watching you and your opponent remove pieces. It made you feel like you're playing that little theater of war,
Mm,
and then my
that's another
other,
one I never played. Like that and
you never
Risk.
did?
Nah, I
Okay.
think it was just when those games were like hot. I think I was just too
Hmm.
young. Like I feel like you were at the
Yeah.
good age range of like those type of
Mm.
games.
Yep. Yeah. I got in right about that time in the 80s where,
Mm,
I was in my teens and I was in middle school, junior high, encountering a lot of other people that liked games. That's when
hmm.
I learned to play D&D and stuff like
Yep, you
that.
just
But
had enough time. You were like,
yep.
we're at the
Yeah.
right age and we have enough
Hmm.
time. Now I'm older and
Enough
want to play
time.
D&D and I have no time.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still looking for a group, and it's been years. And then my other shout out, my other honorable mention has to be another divisive game from the community. It's got to be Catan or Settlers of Catan or whatever we're calling it now.
Mm. All right,
It's got
everyone.
to be
Well,
that.
that was a great episode. Just
Yeah. Oh no, we
uh,
agreed on so much. Yeah,
Catan is just
yeah.
it never hit me. I don't know.
It never hit you.
No.
This
I
game, this
I
game
played it
came
once or
along and
twice.
changed it.
Just
Yeah.
never.
That's fair enough because if you I've taught the game to a bunch of people and I would say it's got like a 90%, oh, that was really fun.
Hmm.
But there's 10% of people that just unfortunately either get blocked in with or just roll poorly or the thief just gets set on them every other turn that
Mm,
and that's why it's divisive in the community. It's luck based. If
hmm.
you get poor positioning at the beginning of the game, or even if you get great positioning, but the dice don't roll.
Yeah.
But this game for me came out and right at the tail end, this came out like in 95. Like we were just getting over our like Axis and Allies and we're moving into some other games. And this game came along and totally like with hexagonal pieces that you set up and wooden, you know, buildings and roads
Hmm.
and a deck of cards and just kind of blew our minds on what could be in a game. setting it up was amazing. It's
Yeah,
it's just it's classic for me.
I
Yeah.
think that kind of shows just like again, I like Monopoly. I think Catan is
Hmm.
it's one of those games. Like I think it's a
Yeah.
great gateway game. I'm not going to knock it. It's just
Yeah.
you were at the time where it was new. Like this is a
Yes.
lot. Catan's a lot of people's gateway games,
Yeah.
and like they'll
Yep.
say like, "Man, that was the game that got me." Blah blah. Like I
Yeah.
was so far removed from that game by the time I got into gaming that I was playing other like gateway games into the
Yep.
hobby. So by the time I went back and played
Hmm.
Catan, I was like, "Oh, this is fine." Like I
Yeah.
I see what it is, but it's just
Yep.
not like for me. And that's I think
Mm.
just the difference of where it's at. It's a classic, great game.
Yeah.
It
Yep. No, that's
just
fair.
kind of passed me.
Yeah, and there's a lot of games out there that people like. This is an X killer. Like this.
Yeah.
If you like this game, you're never going to play it again because you have this game and this game and this game. I feel that Catan, for me, definitely falls into that category. That other games came along and
Hmm.
did things better.
Yeah.
The amount of luck, and this is also a game that had expansions that came out that I've never played that changed the game so much that it turned it in from a simple base game to this giant production where you have islands and ships and barbarians and knights and stuff. And but definitely other games have come out and have done things better.
Yeah.
And I
But
totally get
it's
what you're saying.
but still a classic.
Yeah,
I will
yeah,
not knock it. Just there's
yeah,
I don't think there's any games anymore that I kind of trash. Like it's just like, you know what?
yeah,
Someone enjoys it, not for me. Like that's
yeah,
just kind of my
yeah.
mentality anymore.
I hear you. There's only one game on my list that I absolutely hate that I will not
We'll
ever
save
play. No one
we'll
can
save
tell me
that for a
any
top
differently.
10 least
Yeah,
favorite
yeah.
games.
Least favorite games. I'd love to come back on the show and do that for sure. I'm
Oh,
sure I
absolutely.
could. As cynical as I am in my old age, I could probably come up with 10. Oh
Yeah, we'll have to
man.
stop at 10.
Yeah.
Only 10.
Number 205. Well,
Well, anyway,
uh,
Aaron, thank you so much.
yeah,
This has been a long time coming.
yeah. It's
You
great.
have been a huge fan of ours from the
Yeah,
beginning. You've always reached out, gave us great feedback, so I really appreciate it. I love being able to finally have
yeah,
you on and kind
yeah.
of really pick your brain on things. Do you want to plug anything you want to plug? Plug your
Okay.
Instagram, plug your website,
Yeah,
plug your girlfriend's artwork because I love her artwork. Her Richard Scary
sure.
stuff is fantastic.
Yeah, I'll give my Instagram. I am Aaron Wood Designs, AARONWOOD Designs. On Instagram, my Etsy shop is Just One Scarf. I have a lot of my artwork up on there for my poster work. So that's where I put that. My girlfriend's Instagram is Wonderful Whimsy.
Mm,
I created her logo, but she does a lot of amazing like trading cards and ephemera and nostalgia. She goes out and gets all these like old destroyed Richard Scarry books and
hmm.
comic books that are like in the dollar bin and then meticulously cuts them out with a pair of scissors and puts them on trading cards and buttons and pins and all sorts of amazing things. Her and I have an upcoming show together. I'm in Massachusetts. I do a lot of conventions. I've got Granite State Comic Con coming up this weekend, but we have a little library show for the Forbes Library in Northampton, Massachusetts, and we this is her first like bigger type show that we're
Mm.
doing. She's got her table, I got mine, but should be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, she'll do wonderful. I like your art, but I
Yeah.
love her art.
Thank you. Yeah, hers it's just her craftiness is like she's got a craft room. I sit at my computer at night with my iPad and I work
Hmm.
digitally. I kind of miss that tactile. I grew up with my mom and my gram doing all sorts of crafts and stuff, but everything's digital for me these days. I like watching her in the process. That
Yeah.
the only thing that hurts me is like cutting up books and stuff, like being in the print industry. But they're like books that their spines are broken, and she
Yeah.
never like goes out and buys a pristine copy and stuff. But yeah, she's
It
so creative.
it
But yeah,
made me laugh though the one day you shared it and I was like, "Is that Richard Scarry's ABC da da da?" And you're like, "Yes, that's exactly what it is." I knew the book she got it from and everything. I was like, "Oh, that's great." Um,
yeah, good stuff.
but no, your artwork is fantastic as well. You do
Thank
such
you.
good the posters of like Hyrule, where it's like a landscape picture.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I wish you would come local so I can come buy some stuff from you. I know
Where are you
recently
again? Maybe I'll come out.
What was that?
I said, where are you located again? Maybe I can make
Philadelphia.
it.
So right outside
Oh
of
yeah.
Philly. Not
Oh
super
yeah,
far.
for sure. Yeah,
You gotta
I back in the day I did Wizard World Philly a couple times, so I know
I
exactly
probably
where to go.
seen you because I used to go to Wizard
Yeah.
World.
Oh, too funny. Oh
But yeah,
man.
come to PAX. Just get the PAX unplugged and
Get the packs unplugged and buy hazmat suit
keep
for the
me
unwashed masses.
keep me company there as I'm
For sure. Yeah, you and I
wandering
would
around.
terrorize that place. Yeah.
I gotta do
Oh
better this
man.
year. Last year we got there and I was like, oh, this is neat. All right, I'm ready to go. RP had to be like,
Ready to
we're
go.
staying for a little bit. Like it's
I'm super extroverted, so when I go and do shows and stuff, like if you need a wingman that just
yeah, I
needs to
need you
engage people,
because
I will jump right on them.
I am introverted.
Next
They're like,
year,
hey,
next
are you
year.
Bryan for Gateway Gamers? No, no, no.
No, that's not me. Pull your hat down. Leave.
You're wearing a shirt. I'm just a fan. No, no, no.
Yeah. I see you are wearing a Super Bowl Eagles
That's
hat
right. They're
though,
playing
and
tonight.
I am of course a New England Patriots fan, so it hurts me a little
That's
bit,
fine. I'm
but
barely.
it's okay. It's
I'm a Philly fan. I don't care about sports,
that's
but I
fine.
love
It's
Philly.
yeah. No, that's fine. That's hometown. You got to do it.
Yeah,
Unless you're a Yankees fan, then you're dead to me, you know. But
yeah.
yeah,
I
you're
mean,
good.
they're a whole different thing.
They're a
But
whole different thing.
again,
Yeah.
thank you so much. You're
Yeah.
absolutely invited on whenever you want. Just
Awesome.
give a shout out. We'll do, like I said, our top 10 least favorite games.
You
Um,
bet. I look forward to that.
but I love your art. I love everything you're doing. Please,
Okay.
if you're listening, reach out to Aaron. He has a great sticker collection right now with adorable ghosts doing fall things. His posters, buy the Wingspan art collection just for his Falcon. Throw the rest of the
Mm.
cards out. Just keep his and mix it
Yeah.
into your game.
Yeah. Oh man.
But everyone listening, if you like what you hear, you'll love what you see. Follow our Instagram, follow Aaron, and thank you for listening. And see you guys soon.
Bye.